Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, but man, how y'all doing?
Good, man. It's been a week. A lot of stuff going on, man.
Definitely a lot of things happening.
A lot of things happening. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I am really tired of looking at my social media scroll and it's like one funny meme and then like police state tyranny. One funny meme, police state tyranny. It's like they're like feeding it in little by little to me.
Yo, I'm not touching on any of this. I'm staying away from politics. And so we're talking about succession planning today and nonprofits. I'm pulling a GB today. We are we are on brand protection. Uh, for
That's
sure.
awesome.
And so when you think about succession planning, what are some of the things that y'all think about in terms of setting your team and your organization up for success?
Well, for me, one of the things that I realized pretty early on, like once I started thinking about like what it would look like both for me and our organization if I wasn't here one day, is that like the plan and the planning has to start way before you even like say that out loud to anybody.
Mhm.
And I think far too often with nonprofits in particular, and like uh, the it's hard to get the brain space to and the discipline to like actually think about it. So it took me a long time to actually put some things in place, both for like emergency succession planning, like if I'm out or incapacitated or can't be around for some period of time, and also just like what the long term systems should look like, and what that process should be. And it's usually takes longer than you think to get it done right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think for me, some of the things that I see that what is the hell is going on here? I'm trying to. All right, there we go. I'm trying to get us right. um,
I thought you were trying to make a point. You were like,
nah,
let me get live right now.
nah, not at all. Not at all. But Graham, I think you hit on a really good point because a a lot of folks, especially in the chart school space, and we'll get to Steve and what you do in a second. But a lot of people in the chart school space think that it begins and ends with them, right? And so they're not thinking about let me plan in case this place is without me. And boards, this is a push for you guys because you may have an amazing leader, but one day, God forbid, something may happen to that leader, and they may not be in the place and space in order to do the job the way in which they've done it. And so there are things that need to be in place in order to make sure that that organization continues to run and is continuing to be successful for kids, right? Because like I always, I feel like when we have these conversations and at the end of the conversation, if you say for kids, it just means so much more.
For kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 No, I think that's right. And I think, we have this inability, I think, as a space to think um much beyond ourselves, right? And at least for me, my organization existed well before I came to it, and my organization will hopefully exist long after I've moved on to the next thing in life. And I don't like to say get hit by a bus or something. I like to say if I hit the lotto, because I'm out. um but like, how do we think about what that long-term planning actually is? And it is the responsibility, I think, both of the CEO or the executive director or the superintendent and the board to demand that there's a plan in place, and not just about long-term succession planning, but even in temporary near-term succession planning. Like, if somebody has to have an operation or somebody is unfortunately unable to perform their duties as leader for a certain period of time, the organization needs to know where to turn. And so, when I work with my board, it's not just about long term what happens if Steve needs a permanent replacement, but what also happens if Steve needs a temporary replacement? And what does that look like? How does the board get engaged? Who on the board is responsible for making sure that those decisions are supported, to pick a leader and things like that? And so we've been really specific with us on both the near and long term on how each body, the leadership team, the CEO, and the board, what role they need to play in ensuring a continuum of leadership should anything happen.
Yeah, bro, that's thoughtful, and I love it. I think that one of the things that we run into though is the ego, right? It's like the unwillingness to relinquish power, and so for me, bro, I don't want a lot of direct reports. I'm okay with like 2 or 3 people reporting to me. I don't want 10 direct reports. I don't need to be in the know in terms of the minutia of what happens on the day to day. I just need to know big picture things to where if I'm gonna end up on News 12, I need to know like what my talking points are going to be.
And she's like, News 12. What's News 12? That's Long
Yeah.
Island Channel 1.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, I don't think we get 12.
No, that's Long Island Channel 1. That's Long Island Channel 1.
So, and we never talk about this, right? So these socks right here, they say retire. We never talk about that, man. We never talk about like the soft life, right? Because like, who wants to work until they're 150? Like nobody wants to do that, right? So like we need to start normalizing having conversations about what it's going to look like after work, like life after work.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. And I'm only 7 months away from joining AARP, so this is a realer situation for me than anybody else.
Yeah. Listen, so I don't know. As a quick segue, and then we'll come back. I don't know who's planning that party of yours, but I need for that. First of all, if you are planning, like I need you to send out the save the date like ahead of time, like not a week before. Like
yes.
And I need it to not be one of them BOB parties that you're famous for throwing. I don't want to bring nothing.
You see how it is? This is my birthday. You got to bring stuff.
Yeah, well, a present.
Yeah, I'm happy to bring a present, but not a plate.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's potluck.
Oh no. So let's kind of dive in, man. So how do you start the conversation? Like, how do you start the conversation in terms of like, deciding if and when you want to, Graham, you kind of touched on it, but like, how do you kind of dig deeper in terms of like setting the stage for what may be needed post you in the organization?
Yeah, I mean, part of it's like taking stock of what you got already, both the people in place, bench of potential prospective new leaders who can assume roles, and also what's been codified in your organization so far. When I went on parental leave last winter, I realized that I had a document on my personal computer that wasn't saved anywhere else that had like all the banking passwords, like user access to like all of our state reporting documents, all of these things that make the organization run, that up until this point nobody had ever even like known were happening, and they just didn't exist in like a handbook or a document somewhere central that people could access. And if my computer had fall into the ocean or something like that, it would have caused the same issues as if I was just leaving the organization. And so that really pushed me to be more disciplined about like, okay, what are all the systems and routines that kind of actually build out the job description that I have that I would want to give to somebody else and pass it on. And then like also shake off or refine some of the things that don't make sense for a successor to do, because they wouldn't have the same level of expertise or skill set or relationships with the folks on the team.
Bro, so next year I'm finally getting a managing director of schools. And so what that's going to do in terms of adding to the soft life that I inspire to have, right? Like but one of the things that I needed to do though is that I needed to make sure that everything was on par for the person that's stepping into this role, right? Like you don't want a person to step into your mess in terms of like how you may have managed or like mismanaged situations and whatnot. So you wanted to make sure that you had that thing cleaned up to where, everybody had like a job description, everybody had a clear understanding of what the expectations were, everybody had a rubric in terms of like understanding how they were performing. Those are all
Yeah.
things that are necessary in terms of like someone coming in and there being a smooth handoff. And then also for me, like I don't want to be the keeper of the passwords, man. I will add a user real quick, so it's not just me. So,
A fellow admin, you're an admin now. Congratulations. But I think it's even more important, G, for founders, right? Because I think so much of the founder journey is from this sort of idea to realization is you're doing a lot of things you're on your own. So you've got documents that you've kept, you've got things that live in your head, you have things that live, on your home drive, you have things that live some in your personal email from early days on, and things that get started. I came in for a senior leader who was essentially the founder, and things like simple things like all of the bank accounts, right, were still in his name, not in like a corporate entity name. They were like in his name. And so we had to transfer all of that. The social media was tied to like his Facebook account. Like those things are it's just wild to take over in that space. You're like, how do I systematize things so that like this doesn't have, I don't lead the next person down this road. And also I don't want that stuff connected to my personal stuff, right? This is my business. I want it separated. And so I think in that founder space, so much of what you all have done has been personal, right? To be able to move mountains to get the thing done. Yeah. And so you don't even realize how much is sitting on, a personal folder, a personal email drive, all those things that are essentials of the way that business operates. Right. And so forget about just succession planning. There's also just like knowledge management and knowledge sharing, right? Post departure.
Yeah.
Hey G, you haven't been here in a couple of weeks, man. So you about to carry this show. So
because I aspire to the easy life too.
I'm like Ben Matherin coming off the bench, scoring 27 points.
Jeez. Bro, his stock just went up. So I guess my question is like, from what I see, from my vantage point, right? In nonprofit, I see a lot of founders that just don't know when to let go. When it's time to let go, right? So like you see people that will overstay their welcome, their ideas based off of when they founded the organization don't necessarily plateau to the next level in terms of like the 2.0 or the things that you're going to need in order for that organization to continue to be successful.
Yeah.
What are some of the things, some of the nuggets you have for folks, for one to know, and then two to make that transition to 2.0, what you've done and what you're doing a successful job at doing?
And before you answer that, G, what I'll say is the number one bit of advice I give anyone who's exploring a CEO, superintendency, ED job is never take the job if the founder is still engaged in the organization. If they're still working there or if they're on the board, no good can come from that because of the things you were just saying, right? The concern of like just them still having too much influence and their fingerprints on things. So I do think about that as like it needs to be a hard cutoff, but I don't know how you think about that, G.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think about it a lot because my job, I mean, as the organization has grown from like one grade in the basement of a daycare to like now we're building buildings on Queens Boulevard, like the skill set has changed so much. And like, what got us to this point was like based on skills that I had or developed like in a role that is no longer the role. And I think there are two ways to think about that, or the way that I think about it is like, one is like, if you want to keep pushing yourself to develop and mold and build new skills so that you can take on those new challenges that the organization needs, then great. Then like maybe there's opportunity for you to get more professional development and kind of be the leader that the organization wants you to be. But if you're kind of longing for that job that you used to have and you're trying to kind of retrofit the role that you used to have into the job that you have now, then that should be a signal that like maybe it's time to find that opportunity somewhere else. And you've kind of built enough foundation for the organization for somebody else to take it on. But that's a hard thing to feel like you're no longer like the hero of that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's right, especially because so much of the journey of founders is like you're doing it all yourself, right? You're taking so much of it on your shoulders to get it over. Like it's not you don't just feel like the hero. In many cases, you are the hero of how that thing actually happened, right? And
Yeah.
so being able to sort of step back from that. And I've never seen, right, a founder who stayed engaged in their organization not create confusion, right? Either like who's in charge, on the board or in the staff, right? And that is really hard for a new leader coming in who's trying to get their feet under them as leader to manage against, to say like, don't look at him or don't look at her, look at me. This is my role now, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes, I think that's the tough thing, and that's why I often push people away from it. Like if that's an organization where the founder's still around, run, because it's really scary to be the next person in the door.
Yeah.
Bro, I got hella respect for a founder that
Yeah.
comes to a point to where they're like, hey, I can't take this organization any further, and
Yeah.
I love this organization so much to the point to where I'm going to now leave my organization that I founded because I know that I can't take it any further. I got a lot of respect for that. What I don't have respect for is for when people stay in these positions because it's paying them and it's not really, and they're not really a value add in terms of getting the position to the next level. Like I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think when we think about, at least when I think about succession planning, I'm not only thinking about succession planning for me as the head of the organization, right? And figuring out what's right for the organization, but I'm thinking about succession planning for key roles across my organization. And so I ask each of my direct reports to put together succession plans for themselves as well. So that, somebody gets a new job someplace else or their dream, right? Like we have all been caught in those situations where someone's like, oh, I got this thing going on and I'm out now. And now you're trying to figure out is it an internal promotion? Do I do an external hire? You're in these situations where you're trying to figure out, as the leader of the organization, how to fill a really critical role. And without that work of figuring out who's next in seat for that particular role based on the incumbent, like you're left in the lurch. It's almost like firing a head coach of a basketball team and not having a plan for who you're going to hire next, right?
Right. I knew we were gonna get here. I wanted it to be organic. I didn't want it to be forced. I knew we were gonna get here.
But I mean, you got to have a plan, right? Like you can't just do these things and not have a plan, and then start being like, "Well, can I talk to you? Can I talk to you?" Like you want to work with those leaders of like, who on their bench, who on their team, who reports to them could sit in that seat, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's just for a little while. And so this, succession planning is not just head of the organization; it's many pieces of the organization that are critical roles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think another thing that you touched on, because I'm coming right back to you, because again you about to carry the show, was the fact that the bench component, like the bench component is so important, especially in schools, especially in nonprofits or whatever. It's like, because like you have to tap into your talent. You got to know exactly who you're working with, right? So like you may hire a person for a certain position, but you need to know exactly what that person can do. And so you need to make sure that you're doing like stretch assignments and whatnot to know like how far and how elastic these folks can be if a leadership opportunity comes up, because anything can happen. Like is any given Sunday when it comes down to leadership in nonprofits, because you're gonna get that call one day that somebody's gonna say, you know what, I got this offer for my dream job, and then you're gonna say to yourself, you're like, damn, I didn't even know you was looking for work, right? And so in order for everybody for there to be peace and harmony, when a person makes that decision to get their dream job, you need to have a bench ready to step up in order to assume those leadership roles. And so, G, how you building your bench, man? And then I'll come back and talk about how I'm building mine. Steve, you can talk about how you building yours.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't remember who told me this like once upon a time, but they said, in order to kind of demonstrate readiness for a promotion, you should be able to do 50% of the next job that you want. And if you don't get reps in that next 50%, then you're not able to demonstrate the readiness. And also, if you get that opportunity, it's going to be such a big shock to you. So when you were talking about stretch roles, that reminded me of like, what are the things that I do or that people in our leadership team do that we do well, maybe systems that we create or initiatives, or whether it's, organizing like a complicated event or something like that, that we can kind of empower the next generation of leaders to try their hand on, to get some feedback on. It also pushes us to be more clear about, what success looks like in doing those things, if that hasn't always just lived with somebody who was just good at it. And so it's kind of helped to push us to like build better systems of like, this is what excellence looks like. This is why we create this initiative in February. This is why we do this type of data collection. And now you're going to kind of own it or innovate on it. And I'm going to give you feedback on that process so we can evaluate your readiness for the next level. But it's hard because, it's not like folks have a lot of extra free time to take on 50% of somebody else's role that they don't even have. So
yeah. And then they want that paper for it too. They're like, you gave me this extra work. There better be some money connected to it.
Yeah. So, but I guess for me, when I look at teachers, right? Like when I'm trying to find my happy place, right? I always go into a classroom, and I go to a classroom where there's good instruction. That always is just there's harmony for me. And so when I think about like when there's like DCI promotions or whatever, like directors of curriculum and instruction, I think about who are the really good teachers. And that's not to say that every teacher wants to be a leader, right? Because you got to have good teachers in the classroom in order for in order for you to be able to maintain a good school.
Right.
But like when you have someone that like is leading meetings, you have someone that is going above and beyond in terms of like putting together professional developments, checking in with teachers. And then if you have a person that if you're like, well, damn, you may not be as good as this, but you need to go and watch this person. If it's that person that they're going to watch, right? Then you start putting the spotlight on that person in order for them to take on more, for them to do additional things or whatnot. And then when the opportunities come up, because they do, then you start to look at those people. I had a music teacher. And you know how hard it is to get really good music teachers. It's really hard to get really good music teachers. And so we started giving her like stretch assignments, like checking in with additional special area teachers, because like, we wanted to make sure that whole special areas was being supported, because a lot of times it's not. It's one of those areas in schools to where it can make or break the school culture, right? Like if you have a really strong specials department, then you got a really good school. Because kids aren't getting any time off in terms of checking out and being able to go in those classes. They know that those classes are going to be as academically rigorous as the core academic classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I had to develop a special area DCI, I had one person in mind, because I'm like, yo, she's phenomenal. She's the coach of that team, right? And so having her step out in order to do that job in terms of coaching special areas, like one, they respected her because they knew, that she was a really good classroom teacher, and then two, she's a leader, right? Like I think when you start seeing leadership in people that they don't even see in themselves, right?
Yeah.
And then you start like helping to build that capacity to where they can now see it, then that's when you're doing your job as a coach in terms of creating good leadership, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
to get to the main point and the main part of this podcast, even though we set y'all up and we gave y'all all y'all needed in terms of succession planning, because we like to make things educational. Let's talk about Tibbs, man. Let's talk about our Knicks, man. It's Knick time. So
they asked to talk to me. They asked my board to talk to me, and my board said no too. So
yeah. So if you came to listen to the podcast and you wanted to hear about succession planning, go back to the first 24 minutes, because right now you want to talk about it. So I've been hearing a lot. So my conspiracy theory was like, we're holding out. We're gonna go with this Jay Wright thing. And he immediately was like, "Nah, I'm good. I don't want to coach." Right? He has decided that 2 NCAA championships has afforded him the soft life, which is where I aspire to be. Right? So I am not mad. I am absolutely not mad at the fact, but I did call it. I said, "Yo, that's gonna be Jay Wright," and you guys are like, "You're crazy. They're not even gonna mention his name." and he was the guy. He turned out the job. That was his job. Now the question becomes, because we can't talk to nobody. Everybody that we went to was like, "No, you can't talk to our coach." Like, what are you talking about? So what do we do now?
I got 2 words for you. Latrell Sprewell. I want Latrell Sprewell to be coach of the Knicks. He will, somebody get out of line, he will choke somebody. It'll be great. That team will listen to whatever he has to say.
Well, so it's funny. It's funny that you should mention that, right? In terms of like the elder statesmen in the game,
Yeah.
former NBA players becoming coaches, because I don't know what the transition rate is in terms of like them being successful at coaching. I know it would be an interesting area to further research. Scottie Pippen, they're saying, is going to be the coach of the Bulls.
I can see that though, because I think the ones who like in baseball, the ones who make the best managers are the catchers because they tend to be the on-field managers anyway,
Yeah.
right? Like, right. And so, like, my sense is that the folks who I think make that transition the best are probably the point guards, the people who sort of like ran the offense on the court, right? And so, like, if you're thinking about a former player like J. Kidd, right? Like, when you think about these former players, my sense is like the on-court generals probably have the easiest transition to be head coaches because they're used to like directing traffic. They have it in them already, that natural leadership, because they're leading. And so I would say that whoever is that leader that runs that offense on that floor, if that's the experience you have, then you probably can make that transition relatively easily.
Two names.
Okay.
First name, Mark Jackson.
I love it. You know he went to St. John's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Mark Jackson. He deserves another opportunity. And I think, when I think about Mark Jackson and that like Warriors team, like kind of getting to that point right before the cusp, I feel like he learned a lot from that, and he hasn't had a real opportunity to kind of capitalize since then.
Yeah. Since then,
bro,
right?
They have ISO'd him out of the league in all capacities. That it needs to be studied at the fact that how this man has been ISO'd out of the league. No announcement job, no coaching opportunities, none of that. The second name I got for you guys is Sam Cassell.
I like both of those names are good. I have a preference that if you're going to give somebody a chance who's a former player, it should be one of your former players. Like I just have that. I have that in my head, right? Someone knows the organization, knows ownership because that ownership has been in place forever, right? Somebody who understands what they're getting into, because it's like to bring somebody who's brand new. You don't know what you're getting into dealing with the Dolans. You don't know what you're getting. You know what I mean? You have to have an understanding of what that situation is like, because you got an owner that likes to futz around in basketball decisions.
So notice the two names that I didn't say that are also former Knicks that have like had coaching stints. Patrick Ewing.
Yeah.
I don't want Patrick Ewing anywhere near the Knicks unless he's being an ambassador for the team. That's the only way that I want Pat Ewing anywhere near my Knicks.
He got to teach finger rolls. Too soon.
Yeah. Still upset at a 7'2" Jamaican guy that decides he wants to twirl the ball in the hole as opposed to dunking the ball in the hole. That changed the whole trajectory of the franchise, man. We never talk about that. It's the reason why you wear Jordans and you don't wear Ewings.
One of the reasons.
One of the reasons, for sure. What about Johnny Bryant? He's on the coaching staff now.
I was gonna say Rick Brunson, but I heard from a source. I don't know how true this is. I gotta follow up. But I heard from a source that Rick Brunson during the exit interviews he didn't really get the good feedback. I'm just surprised that they're doing exit interviews. Shout out to them. Shout out to them because like you see all these calculations and like all this other. I know we got a hard stop. Final thoughts, Steve.
Final thoughts. I think Ray should come out of retirement and coach the Knicks. I think if nothing else, what we would see is a lot of really funny activity on the sidelines. And so, if they're not going to make the Eastern Conference Final, I at least want to watch an entertaining show.
Bro, I got a city championship. What about Marbury? Graham.
He can't.
Final thought.
Marbury can't coach. It's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day weekend to all the fathers out there and father figures. And I'm excited to go on StockX right after this and buy my Father's Day present. So shout out to me.
Yo,
Welcome to Fatherhood, buying your own gift.
Hey, I could have had that thing for you, but you didn't communicate the right way. So now you got to pay an additional $250 or whatever you got to pay, but it's all about communication, brother.
Oh, I haven't ordered it yet, so I'll communicate with you after this.
Thank you. Appreciate you. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Peace out.
Peace.